There is a mechanism within the human spirit that remains largely invisible to the naked eye, yet it is the single most defining factor of your existence. We live in a world obsessed with action. We judge ourselves and others by the visible spectrum of behavior, what was done, who did it, and what the consequences were. But in the higher physics of consciousness, the action itself is almost irrelevant. The action is merely the shell, the kernel of truth. The thing that determines the weight of a soul is the intention. Welcome to a deep inquiry into the architecture of spiritual will. We are here to dismantle the common understanding of morality and replace it with an understanding of energetic calibration. You see, two people can perform the exact same action. Let us say, giving a coin to a beggar. One does it out of a desperate need to be seen as good, a fear of judgment, or a bargaining chip with God. The other does it out of a spontaneous, overflowing recognition of the beggar's divinity. Externally, the physics are identical. Metal changes hands. But internally, in the realm where reality is actually forged, these are two completely different events. One is an act of fear, the other is an act of grace. One calibrates at the level of the ego, the other at the level of the spirit. This brings us to the terrifying and liberating concept of absolute freedom. We often believe our choices are limited by our environment. If we are poor, if we are oppressed, if we are sick, we think our freedom has been stolen. But there is a sanctuary within you that no tyrant, no disease, and no calamity can breach. It is the freedom of your reaction. It is the freedom to choose the quality of your consciousness in any given moment. Consider the most extreme scenario imaginable. Imagine you have descended into the very depths of what humanity calls hell. You are being persecuted, perhaps even tortured. In that moment, the biological machine screams. The survival instinct, the spleen, the gut, the animal brain, demands hatred. It demands bitterness. It demands that you view your tormentor as a monster and yourself as a victim. And for 99% of human history, this has been the automatic path. But even there, in the darkest recess of the abyss, the switch exists. The freedom of choice remains. You can look at the horror and choose to refuse God, to collapse into a singularity of hatred, and in doing so, become a permanent resident of that lower astral hell. Or, you can do something that defies biology. You can transcend the instant. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a structural reality of consciousness. There is a state of being where you can look at the person who is destroying your physical form and see not an enemy, but a brother in a tragic play. This is the warrior's paradox. Let me paint a picture for you, one that might challenge your modern sensibilities. Imagine two warriors on an ancient battlefield. They are diametrically opposed. They are sworn to kill one another. And yet, in the moment of the kill, there is no hatred. The one who is dying looks up at the one who is delivering the death blow and sees not a murderer, but a being of immense commitment. He sees a soul who is so dedicated to his cause, so devoted to his own understanding of God and duty, that he is willing to sacrifice his life for it. In that fraction of a second, the victim transcends victimhood. He respects the valor of the killer. He says, "I see your sincerity, I see your power. You are a spiritual warrior committed to the death, just as I am." And the killer, looking down, feels the same reverence. He knows that his own life is the cost of this interaction. They are not two separate egos fighting for survival. They are two waves in the same ocean crashing together, both honoring the force of the water. This sounds insane to the ordinary mind. The ordinary mind says, "He is killing me. I must hate him." But the spiritual will, when calibrated to a level of nobility, sees the essence behind the role. It acknowledges that we are all playing parts in a vast karmic unfolding. If you can die with a compliment in your heart for the devotion of your killer, you have defeated death. You have exited the game of duality. You have served each other. He served you by releasing you from the form. You served him by honoring his duty. This level of perception is what we call nobility. It is a frequency. And this brings us to a crucial point about evolution. Your choices are not just mental decisions. They are energetic capabilities. We often judge people for not being forgiving. We look at the cycles of violence in the world, the Middle East, the generational feuds, the domestic wars, and we say, why don't they just forgive? Why don't they just choose peace? This is a misunderstanding of how consciousness works. You cannot choose from a menu that you cannot see. The options available to a human being are strictly limited by their level of consciousness. If you are operating from the level of the spleen, the center of visceral, reactive, survivalist emotion, forgiveness is literally invisible to you. It does not exist as a possibility. It is like asking a shark to contemplate algebra. The shark is not refusing to do algebra. The shark lacks the neural architecture to conceive of it. So when we see populations trapped in hatred, generation after generation, century after century, we are witnessing a collective entrapment in a specific energy field. They are not bad people. They are people whose aperture of awareness is currently tuned to the frequency of retribution. From where they stand, revenge looks like justice. Hatred looks like safety. To not hate would feel like suicide. This is why the evolution of consciousness is not just a personal luxury. It is the most important work in the universe, because as you evolve, you unlock new menus. You climb the ladder of frequency, and suddenly you stand on a rung where the view changes. You look down at the person who betrayed you, and instead of the red haze of rage, you feel a cool breeze of understanding. You realize they could not have done otherwise. And in that realization, the option to forgive appears. It wasn't there before. Now it is the only logical choice. This is the physics of grace. It is not that you should forgive, it is that you finally can. Let us go deeper into this anatomy of options. We have established that the unevolved mind is a prisoner of reaction. It is a biological puppet, jerking on the strings of dopamine, adrenaline, and cortisol. When the string of insult is pulled, the arm of anger raises. There is no gap between stimulus and response. This is the state of the majority of mankind. It is a sleep state, a trance of cause and effect. But then, there are the outliers, the mutants of consciousness, the individuals who, through suffering or grace, have burned through the cords of the puppet master. When these individuals appear in a community, something miraculous happens. This is the phenomenon of the shared aura. We are not isolated islands of neurological activity. We are broadcasting towers. A person who has reached a level of spiritual nobility, a level where forgiveness is natural and fear is absent, radiates a high-frequency carrier wave. When you stand in the presence of such a person, your own energy field entrains to theirs. It is the principle of resonance. Just as a tuning fork will cause a silent guitar string to vibrate if the pitch is right, the saint causes the dormant divinity in the sinner to vibrate. Suddenly, you find yourself capable of things that are normally impossible for you. You walk into the room of a great teacher or even a deeply loving grandmother, and you feel the heavy armor of your resentment drop. You think, maybe I can let this go. That thought did not originate from your ego. It was borrowed. It was a loan from the surplus capital of the evolved soul standing next to you. They are holding the door open so you can see what is on the other side. This is the true value of the spiritual teacher, the guru, or the holy friend. They are not there to give you new information. They are there to lend you their atmosphere. In their presence, the option to forgive becomes accessible. The option to see beauty in the ugly becomes accessible. They are temporary bridges over the abyss of your own conditioning. But eventually, the training wheels must come off. You cannot rely on the external battery forever. You must find the generator within your own chest. And this brings us to the ultimate secret. All that is required is already present within you. We spend our lives scavenging for spiritual scraps. We read the books, we attend the workshops, we travel to the ashrams, believing that we are empty vessels trying to fill ourselves with the love of God. This is the great cosmic joke. You are not a vessel to be filled. You are the source that has forgotten it is flowing. The love of God is not a commodity that is dispensed to the worthy and withheld from the unworthy. It is the substrate of existence itself. It is the dark matter of the soul. It is so deep, so innate, so woven into the carbon and light of your being that you cannot lose it. You can only bury it. And what do we bury it under? We bury it under the sediments of I know. I know who I am, I know who you are, I know what is right, I know what is wrong. These mental structures, these ossified opinions, create a crust over the heart. The spiritual path is not about building a tower to heaven. It is about mining through the crust. It is a process of subtraction, not addition. If you can stop identifying with the spleen, with the part of you that keeps score, that craves justice, that feeds on drama, you will hit a bedrock of absolute power. This is the power of devotion. And do not mistake devotion for weakness. Do not mistake it for the passive, meek piety of religious art. Real devotion is a fire. It is a nuclear force. There is within you, right now, a capacity to surrender that is so total it could shatter the world as you know it. You say, I am weak, I am addicted, I am afraid, I don't have the power to surrender my life to God. That is the voice of the crust. That is the voice of the history. But if you were to summon the truth of your nature, if you were to really call upon it in a moment of crisis, you would find a giant rising from the floor of your soul. You would find the willingness to say, for thee, O Lord, do I lay down my life. And you would mean it, not just your physical life. That is the easy part. The ego loves a martyr. No, I mean laying down the life of the me, laying down the details, laying down the preference for how your day goes, laying down the demand that people treat you with respect, laying down the insistence that you are right. This is the true sacrifice, to place the I upon the altar. And when you do this, you realize that the devotion wasn't something you manufactured. It was the gravity that was pulling you home all along. The power of that devotion is your guarantee. It is the golden ticket. Why? Because the universe cannot resist a surrendered heart. It is a law of physics, as immutable as gravity. When the individual will aligns perfectly with the universal will, conflict ceases, friction dissolves. You become a force of nature because you are no longer obstructing nature. Think back to the warrior we spoke of, the one who could love his killer. How did he reach that state? He did not get there by hating war. He got there by surrendering to the role he was assigned, and then finding God within the role. He did not escape the battlefield. He sanctified it. We are all on a battlefield. It may be a cancer ward, a divorce court, a corporate boardroom, or the quiet desperation of a lonely apartment. The scenery changes, but the curriculum is the same. The curriculum is, can you find the freedom to choose love here? Can you find the nobility to respect the forces that seem to be opposing you? When you begin to view your life this way, the concept of enemy evaporates. There are no enemies. There are only intense teachers. There are only karmic sparring partners helping you build the muscle of consciousness. The person who cheats you is helping you detach from money. The person who insults you is helping you detach from pride. The person who leaves you is helping you detach from dependency. They are serving you, just as the killer served the warrior. But this perspective requires a shift in identity. You have to stop being the character in the movie and start being the screen on which it is projected. The screen is never burned by the fire in the movie. The screen is never cut by the sword. The screen is completely involved, yet completely untouched. This shift is the move from the spleen to the heart, and eventually to the crown. As you make this ascent, you will notice that your choices become fewer, but your freedom becomes greater. This is a paradox. In the lower realms, you think you have many choices. I can hate him, I can ignore him, I can plot revenge, I can be passive-aggressive, but all those choices are variations of the same trap. They are all reactions. As you ascend, the clutter falls away. You see the situation and you see the truth. And the truth dictates the action. You forgive because you see the innocence in the other. You serve because you see the oneness. It feels less like a choice and more like an inevitability. You become a law unto yourself. You become a localized field of divinity. And this is where the guarantee of salvation comes in. Salvation is not a destination you reach after you die. Salvation is the experiential knowledge that you are safe. It is the knowing that because you are not the body and you are not the story, Nothing real can be threatened. When you tap into that innate devotion, you are tapping into the part of you that knows it is safe. You are tapping into the part of you that is of the same substance as God. And like recognizes like. The drop falls back into the ocean and realizes it was water all along. So, how do we practicalize this? How do we take this high philosophy and bring it into the traffic jam, the argument, the bill payment? You start by acknowledging the spleen. Do not fight your lower nature. Do not judge your hatred or your fear. When the anger rises, simply watch it. Say, there is the biological machine doing what it was programmed to do. There is the survival instinct protecting the form. Respect it. It has kept your ancestors alive for millions of years. But then, engage the higher circuit. Ask yourself the pivotal question: what is my intention here? Not what do I want to get, but what do I want to be? Do I want to be a mechanism of retaliation? Or do I want to be a conduit of peace? Remember, you have the freedom of choice even in hell. So in the hell of your own bad mood, in the hell of your own resentment, exercise that freedom, pivot. It takes a microsecond. It is a flicker of the will. I choose peace. I choose to see this differently. I surrender my need to be right. At first you will fail. You will choose the spleen. You will choose the ego. That is fine. That is part of the calibration. But every time you remember that you have a choice, you are strengthening the neural pathway of the mystic. You are widening the aperture. And one day, you will face a situation that would have previously crushed you, a betrayal, a loss, a diagnosis. And you will wait for the crash. You will wait for the despair, but it won't come. Instead, a strange, quiet strength will rise up. A willingness to say yes to exactly what is happening. A profound appreciation for the unfolding of life, even in its jagged edges. And you will know then that the devotion was there all along. You will know that the power did not come from the outside. It came from the silence between your thoughts. It came from the space where you finally put down the sword and realized you were never fighting an enemy. You were only ever wrestling with God until you let Him win. Be the warrior who respects the opponent. Be the alchemist who transmutes the lead of suffering into the gold of wisdom. But mostly, be the one who remembers. Remember that the menu of options is vast, and the button for love is always on the dashboard, waiting for you to have the courage to press it.